Hello and welcome to our last lecture about the future of health. We're going to go over the course objectives and what we should have learned this semester. So upon completion of HSC 3102, Personal and Family Health, you will be able to gain factual knowledge of key concepts in the area of health and well-being, increase your knowledge of the prevalence, risk factors, and treatment of common health problems, understand the impact individual, social, community, environmental, and policy level factors have on health outcomes, demonstrate how theory and research can be applied in real-world settings to improve health and well-being, and apply strategies to improve one's own personal health and well-being. And so hopefully throughout these 16 weeks together, you have increased your knowledge of health, some of the predictors or risk factors that influence the likelihood of getting some of these health outcomes, diseases and disorders, and some of the preventative behaviors that you can partake in, exercising, eating healthy, watching your alcohol intake, and so on. And, this class, the way that I think about this class is really just kind of a primer on how to be healthy and how to think about health in terms that are realistic and beneficial to you. And so one of the things we do focus on a lot in this class, or that we have focused on, is health behavior change. And not only have you gone through the process, but we've learned a lot about what it takes to uh, help other people change their behavior, what kind of messaging works, what kind of factors or barriers may influence engaging in healthy behaviors, or what kind of behavior or what kind of things prompt unhealthy behavior as well. And so I just want to kind of talk about two big areas here of health behavior change. One is that all behaviors make sense and serve a purpose in a person's life. And to change that behavior, we have to understand the purpose of that behavior. And so when you were reflecting on your own health behavior change, sometimes we're just unmotivated, but sometimes there are barriers that we have, the behavior that we're not engaging in or we are engaging in serves a purpose in our life. And so, it might be a stress reduction behavior, and a lot of you talked about that. I do this when I'm stressed out. And so understanding what that behavior means to that person means then that we can help change that behavior. Or if you're talking about yourself, you can think, oh, I'm doing this because I'm stressed. I need to address the stress in my life. That's the real kind of underlying issue here. And then secondly, empathy and curiosity are kind of always needed in this process of health behavior change. And for ourselves, if we're engaging in health behavior change, or for other people, if we're helping them through behavior change, we really need to be empathetic about this process. It's not an easy process, as many of you have learned or come to realize, and some people do have an easier time than others. Some people can be like, I'm going to make this change, and I change it, and you change it. But a lot of times we do struggle, and understanding that our behavior change is a journey. That's why I try to use that word. And if we think back to the stages of change or the trans-theoretical model, how it's kind of a circle or a spiral in health behavior change, and really thinking about that and how, just like life, kind of, there's struggles at points and easy flashes at points, but having empathy with yourself and other people who are going through behavior change, because again, that behavior that we're trying to change serves a purpose in someone's life. And so that is a big change too, usually addressing that. And so just having that empathy and being curious about the process, and almost a mindful approach that we've talked about before too, right? Realizing that this is just a journey that we're on, that we need to be empathetic with ourselves or with other people who are trying to make changes too. And just, I think having that mindset is really important when we're working in health fields. So hopefully, throughout this class, you've learned a little bit about different health issues, diseases, disorders, healthy behaviors. And really, the other big thing is understanding that, this class focused on individual behavior mainly, but we also talked about environment. We talked about some policies or laws that impact behavior and how it really is this multifaceted issue. It's just not, we're not in a silo with our own health. We're dependent upon the environment, policies that impact our health, the community of people around us. That became very apparent with COVID and some of the other infectious diseases that we may see. And so I think that is an important point of this class as well, just realizing that you can be as healthy as possible, but your health is also impacted by all of these other factors as well. Okay. So I'm trying to make this short because we are at the end of the semester, but I wanted to talk about two kind of ideas about the future of health. And really, this is also the present of health as well. One is AI. Obviously, artificial intelligence is having its moment right now. And I think the impact of health in the healthcare system is going to be huge, hopefully. I think it can be a huge positive aspect of righting some of the things that are wrong about our healthcare system. And I think it'll be a huge positive too, just in our health. I think there'll be more kind of apps and things like that that come out that are helpful in a more personalized approach to our health. So one other thing that I wish I had the link for this, but it's not available yet. But we just had a lecture in my department about how AI models are reducing the need for animal research, and I think it was so cool that they can do a lot of research using these AI models and not having to use animals like rats and mice. For engaging in some of this kind of basic biological, pharmacological research that they do. And so I think that's a huge positive, honestly. And it's probably a little bit more accurate too, than because, we're not rats and things like that. So that is really amazing work that I didn't even realize was happening. And if that link comes up this week for that YouTube video, that recording of that lecture, I'll post it here, but it's not available yet. And then AI in healthcare, like I said, I think this is where we might see a lot of really positive changes. One, diagnoses can happen a lot quicker with some AI frameworks. Decreasing paperwork amounts or tedious jobs, I think, is where we could really see the benefit. And so having, the AI do the paperwork or kind of transcribe a lot of information. It can do some first passes of work too. And I think that is where it would be exciting to look and see how much of that can change the amount of work, kind of the tedious work, the paperwork, and free up healthcare professionals to do more of one-on-one work with the patients. The big obvious like negative here is bias. So AI is accurate in so much that it's learned from past information that it's been fed. Um, maybe learned is not the right word, but it is that's how it's getting its knowledge from all the information that has been put into it. And so obviously the biases that exist that are pre-existing are not going to disappear with AI. And so, our healthcare, we've had a long history of racism in healthcare. And so we just have to make sure that that is not going to come up in when we kind of rely on AI to do some of this work. And so that's why I think AI might be helpful more so in doing some of the tedious things like the kind of transcribing and things like that, rather than creating new or like diagnoses, I think might be a little bit concerning sometimes. Um, I think maybe using it for confirming rather than using it as a first pass. But we then also want to make sure that we're not, falling prey to confirmation bias either. So I think one of the things that would be exciting in the future is how to train healthcare professionals to use AI to make sure they're not over relying on it, making sure they're aware of the biases that may be baked into it and using it more as a helpful colleague as instead of kind of a guide or a mentor. And so I think that will be an exciting future of AI and health, and really it could go in so many different directions. But obviously that's the present and the future. And then with misinformation, so I am really interested in health misinformation. I think it is playing an increasingly negative role in the health of people, in the health of our world. And it's concerning. So there's misinformation and there's disinformation. And unfortunately, I feel like the rise of health disinformation is growing. So disinformation is deliberate, bad information that is being put out there. So it's when someone knows that the information that they're sharing is wrong and they share it anyways. Whereas misinformation is kind of like when you repeat something, but you don't really know that it was wrong. And so both are obviously bad to have out there, but disinformation means the person that is relaying that bad information is doing it knowingly. And I think people's health are so personal, and obviously it can be life or death. And for people to play around with other people's health is just despicable. I really think that this is just a huge problem, and people aren't connected to how their words about health can really play a huge role in someone else's life. So what we need to do is be skeptical of health information and choose to verify health information. And we are bombarded with information all of the time. And health information, particularly things that can be sold, so vitamins or skincare or supplements and all of this stuff out there. Um, and we often, so much information coming at us all the time that often we don't do kind of the investigating of that information that we should. And so I really think that we need to be more skeptical, choose to verify health information. If you're going to repeat it, you need to verify it first. If you're going to buy something, you need to verify it first as well. And so, if you see something, Google it, or AI is actually really accurate for the most part in a lot of this health information. And so if you know what questions to type into AI, ChatGPT, it's going to provide you with fairly accurate information about health. It doesn't fall prey to a lot of the misinformation that maybe a Google search would. So I think that is exciting too. I teach my Health Mythbusters class in the spring. And so I've been kind of using ChatGPT a lot to see what kind of job it does on some of the myths and health information that we talk about. And it is overwhelmingly more accurate than Google. And so I think that's exciting, and that this is kind of a neutral database in a way that you could search and get accurate information. The big issue then with AI, using AI, is that it's, only it's not up to date for the last year. And so new information with health is just again coming out so fast that um that might not be the most up-to-date information. But I think for a lot of your basic information, with some of the misinformation that's out there right now with vaccines, water fluoride, um, some of the cancer, like causes of cancer, all of that stuff, you're going to get correct information through an AI search. And so I think that is really helpful information, helpful in hopefully getting more people to get correct information. I do think, again, you have to stop being a passive consumer of health information and really be an active, skeptical consumer of health information. What exactly is in the ingredients of what you're ordering? Who is it being, who's overseeing that stuff? A lot of the vitamins that we get really don't have a lot of oversight. So what is actually in your vitamins? I'm not trying to like scare you from this information, but I think a lot of times we assume that what we are eating or using on our in our bodies or on our bodies is regulated in some way, and a lot of times it's not. And so I think we can trust the regulations that are there, but knowing what isn't regulated and then making informed decisions is also really important. Because really, at this point, anyone can kind of make something and sell it to you. And how do you know that what is in there is good quality material and that doesn't have some of these side effects? Because one of the other things we learn about is often in the history of chemicals in the United States, we use a chemical for a little bit, like lead, and then we realize how dangerous it is. And then we have to, spend millions of billions of dollars getting that lead out of everything that we put into it or that where we put it. And so I think that is also just, again, not to be, we don't want to be a conspiracy theorist about things, but we want to be skeptical and careful about what we use and put in our bodies and on our bodies. The other thing I want to say about health misinformation, again, like I have a whole class about this, and so that's why I'm talking so much about it, is that it can in fact change um, or impact how people think about um, their behavior and impact what they actually choose to do. And so I was listening to a webinar about fentanyl communications last week. And one of the things that the speaker talked about frequently is that teens have misinformation about fentanyl, a lot of misinformation. And one of these pieces of misinformation that many teens believe about fentanyl is that you would be able to see it in your drugs. You would be able to see it because it's shiny. And so if you're doing drugs and you could look at the drugs and say, okay, I don't see any fentanyl in it. I'm fine with doing whatever drug. And so this isn't true. Fentanyl, you can't see it in the drugs. It looks like the rest of the drug. It's not shiny. It doesn't stand out. And so that misinformation can kill somebody in less than 4 minutes. That's all it takes to overdose from fentanyl. And so I think that is also a problem. And we talked about, in this Department of Health Education, educating people, but we also have to look and see, well, what are the pieces of misinformation that's out there and how can we change that misinformation? How can we communicate correct information? How can we make sure that misinformation doesn't keep getting shared around? It's so easy to share misinformation. And I think we have to recognize that our social media companies aren't going to be part of this battle with us. They're not going to help us. And so we have to really be the people out there, the consumers out there sharing correct information, not sharing incorrect information and sharing correct information related to health, because that's really, I think it's on all of us at this point to point out misinformation when we see it. Um, and I'll get off my little soapbox of how I think health misinformation is becoming just such a scary thing right now because so many people believe in misinformation, and it really can impact people's lives, and it can get to the point of not only impacting their life but impacting the health of other people around them too. And I think that's where we really have to be aware and start digging in with how we can change thoughts and behaviors and making sure that people understand the seriousness of believing and choosing to um, want to understand health information and make sure that what they're reading and digesting is correct evidence-based health behavior information. Okay, so lastly, what is your role in the future of health? And so I know not all of you are going into a healthcare field, but I think hopefully in some way you're passionate about health. And so either, one at the very basic level, you're passionate about your own health. And I think this, again, we've learned a lot about, positive health behaviors you should engage in, behaviors you shouldn't engage in. Um, and I hope that throughout this class you've learned some of those things and that you take them with you throughout the rest of your life and you choose when possible to choose healthy behaviors that you can engage in and that you stay as healthy as you can in each moment. And then also, again, even if you're not going into a health field, I think the health of your family, your friends and family are important. And this doesn't mean like nagging people who are engaging in, negative health behaviors, but I think it's, making sure that, if you hear someone talking about misinformation, saying, oh, I don't think that's really right. Or, what I've heard is this. And I think that is a role that we all can take on and trying to make sure that the people that we love, that we want to see stick around and be with us, are engaging in positive health behaviors, not falling prey to health misinformation. And then the health of your community. Again, even if you're not, or even if you are, either way, making sure our communities are healthy and safe kind of goes with the last one, equitable and accessible health for all. The environment, we talked about the environment and how important the role of the environment is in our health and the health of people around us. And I think that, again, just making sure that we're engaging in behaviors that keeps our environment, our community healthy. And, if you're passionate about this type of work, volunteering for different nonprofits or organizations that share this same idea of a healthy community and making sure things are equitable and accessible, speaking up and making sure that, if there are events being held, that they're accessible, that they're equitable for everybody. If your company is planning an event, trying to make sure that it is healthy and accessible and fun for all. I think that's also, joy in health is important. And it's not just going out there and running your miles, but it can be playing with your kids or, hiking in the forest. And I think having joy in health experiences is really important. And that's what, will make people continue to engage in healthy behaviors if they're having fun while they're doing it. And so the health of our communities, our environments, really does rely on individual people to make a difference and to speak up and to act in ways that are in line with what we know is healthy and what we can do to help other people be healthy. And so, going back one more time to our objectives, again, I just hope that this semester you've learned a little bit more than you came in with how our bodies work, what are positive health behaviors, what are negative health behaviors, learning about some of the different impacts on health, on our health, on everybody's health, and thinking about some of the theories and research that we've talked about that we can use to improve health. So we've talked a lot about communicating health information this semester and, not using fear-based appeals and thinking about barriers and attitudes and all of those aspects that we talked about play a role in, whether or not someone is going to engage in health behaviors and, what we can do too to help ourselves and other people understand, what it takes to be healthy. And so I have enjoyed sharing some of this knowledge with you this semester, and I hope that you have found it helpful, and I wish you the very best.